Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, and I'm excited to be here with you today. I didn't even say that yesterday, did I? That's amazing. This was really quite an interesting experience taking 2 weeks off of doing the podcast, and I think this is important to kind of talk about for a second because, we have this tendency to kind of, like taking these 2 weeks off, I had this tremendous urge, this tremendous pressure that I had on myself to do something special, right? Like now that I'm back after 2 weeks, it's got to just blow the doors off of it, right? And this is the kind of pressure that we put on ourselves all the time, right? And when we do this, when we put this kind of pressure on ourselves, what we're doing ultimately is we're creating mental activity. We're creating distracting thoughts. We're creating overwhelming emotions that are not serving us, right? Like, and it's coming from, from our own activity, right? It's not something coming from outside of us. It's something that we're creating, right? This reminds me of that movie. I don't remember what the movie was, but some scary movie where the girl's on the phone with the police and they say the call's coming from inside the house, And that's the way it feels, right? That we psych ourselves out like this. We put so much of this pressure on ourselves that, it takes away our ability to actually perform. Right. And that's very literally with what I'm talking about here. Like, yesterday I had this whole list of things in the black book. I had to do all this, I had to like build it up, and it probably took a little bit away from what I was actually doing. Right. Because if I'm going to perform at something, whether that's a podcast or whether it's, just being with my kids and performing my duties as a father, performing my duties as a spouse, performing my duties as a citizen of the world, right? You can't perform if you're lost in your own thoughts, right? And that's the thing, right? So when we kind of have something coming up, and this is something that was kind of, chirping in my ear for like 5 days before yesterday, right? And so this is what normally happens, right? And this actually very specifically ties into what we're going to talk about today, right? So what happens though is that we get this kind of, this anticipatory stress, if you will, right? We think about, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I got 5 days, I got 4 days. Oh my gosh, it's coming. 3 days left. Oh my gosh. And it builds up because what we're trying to do is we're trying to anticipate what's going to happen. Right? We're trying to, get ourselves a sort of map, at least a mental map of what is going to transpire on the day when the thing goes down, right? Now, this is normal. This is something that your brain is supposed to be doing, right? But you can see how it can wind up not serving us, right? And so today, this is exactly what I want to talk about. As I said, this could not have been a better segue, and I totally didn't even plan it, you see? And that's the value of just being here and just hitting the button and going, right? Like here we are. Let's give everything I have into this. And normally, almost every time when we do that, good things are going to come out of it, right? Like everything kind of works out from that place because how could it not almost, right? Because whatever works out, it's going to be good enough kind of, right? So let's talk about this. So there are, so consciousness, right? Consciousness is essentially the ability to be aware, right? That's how I define it. I'm sure there's lots of different ways that you could define consciousness and stuff like that, but it's certainly, it's the ability to be aware that you exist, right? So it's like an awareness of self, but it's an awareness of, how myself fits into everything, right? That's sort of like how consciousness works, right? And basically it's the way we experience our world from the standpoint of awareness, okay? Maybe that's an easier way to kind of talk about it and define it, right? So as human beings, we have two sort of modes of consciousness. Okay, we have one mode, which is conduition, and we have another mode that is construction. Okay, now let me explain what that means. Okay, so Conduition, right? We have five senses: the eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, the touch organ, which is the entire outside of our body, right? Sight, smells, sound, taste, touch. Those are our five senses, right? Everything that happens out in the world, right, comes into our bodies through one or more of these five senses. Okay, so that's conscious, right? Like that's consciousness of our surroundings, right? And the tool that we have to be conscious of our surroundings, again, are the five senses. Okay. Now we also have a sixth sense, which is what neuroscientists call interoception, right? Which is the ability to perceive what's happening in my body, right? Now, all the time, our bodies are sending signals, right, from our the unconscious part of our bodies into the consciousness of our mind, of our brain, right, which the mind kind of includes both, right, but it sends signals from the unconsciousness of the body to the consciousness of the brain. Okay. Because remember, there are some unconscious things that are going on. I told you about that card trick, right, where they have 4 decks of cards, 2 red, 2 blue, a whole bunch of college students. You flip a card. You know, if you get higher, you win $1. If you get lower, you lose $1, something like that. I don't remember the rules of the game. But the reality was that the 2 blue decks were straight out of the box, just shuffle and put them on the table and play. The 2 red decks were totally fixed. There was no way anyone was going to win on the red deck. So it took people generally about 50 turns before they realized that something was going on, right? And they said, okay, something's up with this. I don't think this is a straight game. 30 more turns, 80 turns total. They said, okay, this is not, I've never won with the red decks. This is fixed, right? But here's the thing. They were also hooked up to a lie detector, a polygraph machine, right, which was measuring the sweat of their palms. Now, the sweat of your palms, the sweat glands in your palms are not like the rest of your sweat glands, which respond to heat and exertion, right? But the sweat glands of your palms actually respond to an internal stress, right, which is connected to your gut, right? And so what they found was that all of these college students, like every single one of them, it took 50 times before they realized, okay, something's up here, right? But after just 10 turns, their palms started sweating and they started unknowingly favoring the blue decks. Okay, so there is a tremendous knowledge that your body has that is outside of your consciousness. Okay, so that's important to understand too. Okay, but what we're talking about is the conscious awareness. Okay, in this particular situation, right? And so when these, so the conscious awareness is what we get through the 5 senses, right? Now, your nervous system is sensing stuff outside of your consciousness all the time. That's not the conscious awareness that we're talking about, okay? Just want to be clear about that. So we have this interoception, right, which is the ability to perceive what it is that our gut is feeling, what it is that our lungs are feeling, our heart is feeling, our body is feeling, right? So we can bring a conscious awareness to what is happening in our body. However, there is something outside of our consciousness that's also happening, okay? It's a little complex, but we'll get there, I promise you. Now, you have a 7th sense, right, which is the mental activity, if you will, right, which would include the emotions and the thought process. Now, this sensory, which we're going to get to an 8th sense. So the 8th sense, I'll do this first. The 8th sense is our sense of relational connections, right? So the connection to the time and place we're in, the connection to the people in our lives, the connection to animals, the connection to nature, all that kind of stuff, right? That's our sort of 8th sense, the way that we can sense a perception of being, right? Consciously, right? So like while we're walking down a hiking trail, right? There are moments where if you are very clear, and I'm going to get to this in a second, if you're very clear and not lost in your own thoughts, then you're likely to start to sense a deep connection, a deep sense of connection to really the universe, right? Like that's what happens. Like you just feel like you're one with all of this, right? You can get a sense of the fact that this hiking trail has been, hundreds of years of people walking on this trail, and I'm just one of them. And there's going to be, years after me, there's going to be people here. There's going to, right? So we have this connection to what's going on, right? So those are what's called the eight senses. Now that comes from Dan Siegel, right? As I told you, I think I mentioned yesterday, I'm taking a course with Dan Siegel in interpersonal neurobiology, and it is just blowing my mind. Okay, and I mean, it's a lot of stuff I already knew, but like to have it all in one place and like kind of go through it again, just absolutely wonderful. It's touching all of my nerd nerves, and I love it. And actually that's where I met my the person who I'm doing my trauma therapy with. So it's pretty intense stuff going on. So anyway, so the idea is that these are all the ways in which we can interact with the world, right? We have our 5 outer senses. We have the 6th sense of understanding what's happening in our body, because our body, again, reacts to the world around us without our knowing it, right? And so we can bring awareness into that, okay? Then there's the emotions and the thoughts that every time we experience something, right? Every time we experience something, it is accompanied not only by the physical, body experience, but it also includes some emotional experience. You have an emotional response to everything that happens to you, and you also have a mental response to everything that happens to you. What do you think about this thing, right? And then again, the 8th sense is this deeper sense of connection. Okay, so how does this apply to conduition versus construction, right? Because remember, those are the 2 modes of the way we can be conscious, right? Conduition, right, is you become a conduit for the experience that's happening, right? And so what that means is that you open yourself up to the experience of walking down this hiking trail, right? And as you're walking down the hiking trail, if you're open to the hiking trail and you're open to the experience and you're truly in conduition mode, right? Then you are going to hear all the sounds. You're going to smell all the smells. You're going to see all the sights. You're going to even maybe get like Dan tells the story about being on the beach, right? So you'll taste the salt, right? You'll smell the wildlife in the ocean and all that, right? Same thing with the hiking trail, just not so much the taste, right? You might even feel like you're, probably not bare feet on a hiking trail, but you might get a sense of like walking on a padded, a tamped down trail. It might feel something to you physically, right? As your sense of touch, right? Oh, I guess that's kind of not the sense of touch. So again, Dan tells a story about you barefoot on the beach, so that's your sense of touch, right? But you'll feel the warm glow of the sunshine, you'll feel the breeze, you'll feel the shade, you're certainly going to feel something with your sense of touch. Whatever's touching your skin, you're going to feel, right? And so let's say you go to that hiking trail, right? And you got some kind of thing going on at work or something, right? And you go to this hiking trail, and the whole time you're sitting there, you're walking the trail, and you're thinking about this thing that's going on at work, right? You're thinking about how, oh gosh, this project's so late, it's not going so well, this person really dropped the ball, or maybe I dropped the ball, or, all this stuff is happening as you're walking along the trail, right? Well, what this means is that while you're thinking about all of that stuff, that is your construction mode, right? You're constructing something, right? You're constructing a mental thing with the thoughts of this thing that's going on at work, and with, the troubles and the difficulties and all that kind of stuff, right? You're creating that thing in your mind, right? Simply by thinking of it. Right. And this is what happens, right? Like I can ask you right now, I can say, hey, picture a monkey, and you can think about a monkey. There's no problem, right? Easy, right? What kind of monkey, what the monkey looks like, that's all going to be very subjective and personal, but monkey, you got it, right? I got a monkey too. Mine happens to be a chimpanzee. I don't know about yours. So now let's say you're, bopping along in your day, and you're, you see a banana on the counter, and you reach out for the banana, and you remember the story that Jon Kabat-Zinn tells about how they catch monkeys in India by drilling a hole in a coconut shell so the monkey can squeeze his hand in, but grabs the banana, can't get his hand back out. The monkey doesn't know enough to let go, and he gets captured, right? And so now the thought of a monkey has just arisen. It's just, I didn't create that. I just saw a banana, right? But I was a conduit for all of this experience, all of this memory, all of this association that happens. And I thought of a monkey, just like I intentionally thought of a monkey. So you see, in the first example, I was constructing the monkey with my mind, which I can do, which you can do, which all of us can do. Anybody who's ever seen a monkey, a picture of a monkey, can construct a monkey in their mind, right? But yet I was a conduit for the image of a monkey in the second example, right? So if you're out on that hiking trail and you're constructing, because you're thinking about, the thing at work, and you're thinking about all the problems, and you're all that busyness of your mind, right? Well, then you're not feeling the sunshine. You're not smelling the beautiful smells. You're not, getting a taste of the Colorado air. You're not hearing the birds chirping. You're not seeing the birds flying. You're not seeing the beautiful wildflowers everywhere. And the reason you're not seeing it is because you cannot be a conduit and also be a constructor at the same time, right? It's one of those things that the brain can only do one or the other. Sometimes it can probably go back and forth so fast, it seems like it's doing both at once, and maybe there is a possibility that you can do both at once, but really one is going to inhibit the other, right? Especially that way, right? Now, it's less inhibitory to be a conduit, right? Unless the construction brain wants to jump in, right? Like, say you're out on the trail and you're in that conduit mode, and you're really, feeling it, and you're really there in the moment. You're getting this sense of you feel your body feels really good in this situation. You feel very relaxed. All the signals from your body are all very good. You're calm, and you're emotionally very in a good place, right? And you're just, you're solidly there, right? You're feeling the sunshine on your skin and all that stuff that we named, right? And now all of a sudden, an intrusive thought comes in. Boom. Remember that project at work, right? Now you have the choice in that moment to stay in conduit mode or to jump into construction mode. That's your choice. And that's the point, right? And that's the point of mindfulness in general, is to know when we're in construction versus conduit mode, and B, have the control to stay in one or the other. That's the whole game of mindfulness, right? So here's the thing. You knew there was going to be a thing, right? Here it is. Our brains naturally, if they're doing their job and just their job and nothing but their job, they're going to be more constructive than conduition by default, right? Because your brain is an anticipatory organ. It's an associative and anticipatory organ. That's all it is, right? Now, remember, I say this all the time, that for all of the complexity that your brain has and all of the amazing stuff that your brain can do, literally processing billions of bits of data all the time, right? Like, it's just, it's unfathomable how complex and powerful your brain is, the abilities that your brain has. I mean, it runs this whole organism, right? It's huge. But for all of that complexity, it really just has one simple job, which is to keep you safe, okay? So for that reason, your brain is constantly, and I mean constantly, 100% of the time that you are awake, your brain is observing what's happening around you. It's filtering out the data that doesn't seem pertinent or important or pertinent to your safety. Right. So like the fact that there's a thing on the top of my closet over there is not important to me. Right. So my brain is going to like kind of gloss over that. Right. And it's going to pick out the things that it's determined are important to your safety. Right. So that's one thing that it's doing automatically, right? It's filtering out because you can't possibly, there's no way that we could possibly consciously look at every bit of data around us. We'd never be able to function, right? Because there's just too much happening around us, right? So your brain is organizing all of this, kind of filtering out the important stuff, right? And then it's taking what it's, the important stuff, it's taking that and it's associating it, it's comparing it to everything it's ever known before, right? Through your memory, implicit memory, explicit memory. It's processing through all of everything you've gone through before, as well as the sort of, condition of your nervous system, right? And it goes through that whole thing. And now it comes up with an anticipation of what is likely to happen next, right? So sitting here at my desk, my brain knows nothing's going to happen. There's only 21 minutes here on the timer. So my brain knows that nothing's going to happen. In all likelihood, for the next 9 minutes, nothing's going to happen. So it's chill, right? But if I'm walking down the street, right, my brain's thinking like, okay, what's happening now? What's going to happen 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 now? I mean, it's still doing that now. It just knows that there's nothing alarming, right? But if I'm out there, things change, right? Now the brain goes into a little bit higher alert and says, oh, wow, no, this is not the usual chair that we're sitting in nice and comfy, cozy and talking into a computer screen. There's a lot of danger out here, right? And so the brain takes on a different level of kind of, anticipation, right? But the point is that it's constantly constructing something. Right, it's constantly constructing the potential, the most likely potential outcome, and it's determining, is that safe or is that dangerous? Because once it feels it's dangerous, now we got to do something different. We got to control this body so we keep ourselves safe. Right. So we are always, by default, we are always going to be in construction mode. Right. But again, if you're out on the hiking trail, you don't want to be in construction mode, right? You want to get the whole reason you go out on the hiking trail is to get that experience of being in nature and feeling that, right? Same thing as if you go to a concert. I think I told you the story here. I went to a Sting and Paul Simon concert that we got tickets from. I knew at the time a friend of mine was Paul Simon's personal assistant, right? And so he got us these seats. They weren't really great seats, but they were, it was like VIP entrance and all that kind of stuff. And I had parked my car and we had no money. Like we literally, it was a really hard time in our lives. And we got these tickets. And we're like, oh, well, we'll just spend all the money we have to buy these tickets because this guy, our friend offered them and, why not? And so I literally knew that I didn't have any money in my pocket. And I realized that I parked over on like 10th Avenue in the, 30s. And I was like, that's a bad neighborhood in New York. And, and so the thought popped into my mind, my car is going to get stolen. Somebody's going to steal it. The Toyota 4Runner, people steal those just for parts. My car's going to get stolen. I don't have any money. I'm not going to be able to get home. Oh my gosh, we're going to have to sleep in the train station tonight unless I can, call somebody I know, but I'm sure everybody's going to be out and I can't. And so literally for 2/3 of that concert, the last 2/3 of that concert, I couldn't tell you what song they were playing. I couldn't tell you, whether I enjoyed the music. I didn't enjoy it. My senses were basically blocked off because I was so lost in the thoughts that somebody's going to steal my car. The car was there when we got there, and I never told my wife about any of this, even though I was like practically running to 10th Avenue when we got out of the garden, but that's what happens, right? So while you're out somewhere doing anything, right? Even if it's just having a cup of coffee with a friend. If you're in construction mode, you're not hearing what they're saying. You're not seeing their beauty. You're not smelling the beautiful coffee that you're drinking. You're not tasting the deliciousness. You're not getting the interoception. You're not, really in tune with your emotions and your thoughts about this person because they're being blocked. And you're certainly not feeling a sense of connection to that person in that moment. So now, again, it's not that construction mode is wrong or bad. There are times where you need to be in construction mode, for sure. But there are times where the construction mode does not serve you. And so, again, the idea here with the practices that I talk about here is to develop the awareness. Again, first it's the awareness to know, where am I right now? Am I constructing with my mind, or am I conduiting? I don't know if that's a word, but am I allowing myself to be a conduit, or am I constructing a reality with my mind? What's going on right now? So that's the first step, is knowing where we are. And the second step is saying, you know what? I just paid all this money for these tickets. Whether my car's stolen or not, it's not going to change the fact that I spent the money on these tickets. These are two amazing musicians, they're playing together. I can pay attention to this. I can ground myself into what's happening. And so mindfulness really does become about control. It becomes about empowerment. It becomes about showing up to your life, to every aspect of your life, from the concerts to hiking trails, right? But again, really understanding, like, you wouldn't want a doctor to be in conduit mode when he's doing surgery, right? Right? No, you want him to be in construction mode. You want him to be very clear on what he's doing here, You don't want him like listening to the sounds out there and, ooh, it feels nice and cool in here today. Oh my gosh, look at all this blood, right? So there's a time and place for both. There's nothing wrong with either, right? But it's about making sure that time and place is appropriate. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it helps. Season 2 here, off to a great start. I'm feeling good about it, and I hope you are too. All right. I'll be back tomorrow, everybody. I hope you have a great day. I wish you well. Take care.